Name and your age.
I'm Mary Heyman, I'm 65. I'll be 66 in 2 weeks.
I'm Henry Heyman Jr. and I'm 68 going on 69 in August.
Okay, can you tell me where you were born and what year?
I was born in Barrett, Iowa in 1938 on Mother's Day. My twin sister and I were born. My mom said it snowed that day, and I wasn't born in a hospital. I was born in a little shack of a house on a farm place down by Barrett because my dad was a hired man for this farmer and his wife. And my twin sister, we were 6 weeks premature. My mom said that I was in the incubator for 6 weeks. My twin sister passed away. And when they got me out of the incubator, or when I was in the incubator, they fed me with an eyedropper because I was so little. And then my mom got me home and she carried me around on a pillow. Now, I am a nice sized lady right now, so look what happened. So that's how I was born. Dad? What year were you born and?
Born in 1935.
Where?
Far west of Dedham, about 2 miles south and a mile and a half west. August the 13th, and that is what during the period of the summer which they call them dog days. I guess because of the hot weather it isn't fit for a dog to be alive or something. That's what they refer to them.
Huh, I've never heard that.
What else?
Were you named after somebody else?
Well, I was very privileged. My mom's mother's name was Mary, and my dad's mother's name was Edith, so I am named after both grandmas, which I thought was real nice. And my twin sister, I am Mary, and my twin sister was Marian Ethel. And Mom got the name Ethel from the nurse that took care of me when I was in the incubator in the hospital.
I was named after my dad. His name was Henry John Heyman. And he also had a brother whose name was John Henry Heyman.
Oh.
Which would be my uncle.
Oh.
How many brothers and sisters do you have?
I have one brother and 2 sisters, and I'm the oldest sibling.
I had 6 sisters and 2 brothers. At present, there's one of the brothers surviving, and there's 4 of the sisters surviving.
You had 6 sisters and 3 brothers.
No, 2 brothers, I said.
I thought you had 3.
There's 9 total. I'd be the 9th one.
Oh yeah, all right, gotcha. Just didn't want you to make a mistake.
Did you bond with one of them more than the others?
Oh, I don't know. I got along with my brother and my sisters okay, I guess. I don't know about doing any bonding or anything like that, but I got along with them all.
What was that?
Which one of your brothers or sisters did you bond the most with? Did you do any bonding with your siblings?
Well, I chummed around more with Clifford than any of the others.
Your oldest brother.
The oldest brother, yeah.
Okay.
We used to go out squirrel hunting an awful lot in later years.
In later years, but she's talking about in your younger years.
What was that?
She's talking about in your younger years.
Well, in younger years, same way we trapped gophers even then. When we were both in grade school, we'd go out and we'd run gopher traps in the morning, and then we'd go out in the afternoon after school and we'd set new ones for the next morning we'd check. There's a bounty on them, you got paid a little money for them.
How much you get paid?
Well, you get paid, there was a dime a gopher, but you had to take the front paws and cut them off and put them in salt. And you had to take them up to the courthouse, and the little girls would dump them on the counter, and they'd have to count them, so you get paid. You got paid by the county as a bounty on them. Dime a gopher, but you made the most money getting paid from the farmer because he'd give you a quarter a gopher to get him out of his hayfield.
Well,
Oh.
that's good.
Do you think life is harder or easier than when you were younger? And why?
Life is easy now compared to when I was younger. When I was a young girl, we lived on, my folks rented a farm place and we, worked kind of poor and whatnot on, and we lived in a place that had no electricity, no running water, no toilet. You had an outhouse. At night, instead of, if you were afraid to go out to the outhouse, you had a potty that you went to the toilet on. Commode, I should say. And
Chamber pot.
when I was a young girl, you kids now are bused to school. We walked to school 2 miles, even in the wintertime. And I recall one time, it was on Holy Thursday, we went to school, it sleeted the whole day. And my brother and my sister, we walked home, and it was 2 miles, because we lived in Dedham then, it was 2 miles, past the co-op, and then up to the corner, and then way back in the boonies. And Grandma, Mom, Mom's grandma, was waiting at the gate for us, because was wondering if when we were coming. And my brother and my sister and myself, we had sleet on our face and our hands, and because it was sleeting, it was sticking to our clothes, and we were cold, and she was worried about us when we were going to coming home. I can remember that so well. And the gate was like 1/8 of a mile from the house yet, because we had a long lane. But yeah, it wasn't. Kids back then had a little rougher than what you kids
Oh,
got now.
yeah.
Another thing too, we didn't have hot lunches in school. We took lunches, and we didn't have lunch boxes. Years back then, they had lard come in a can, or a syrup can. Your syrup come in a can, not like a bottle like it does now, and that's what we used for lunch pails.
Like what they do in Little House?
Yeah, just like you do on Little House on the Prairie. Yeah. So. How about you growing up, going to school? Did you walk to school?
Hey, Mom, move that light over. Come here.
Do you think life is
Yeah,
harder or easier?
They
now?
go to school. I lived in town all my school years except for one, and I went to a country school that one year, which was what they called the Evergreen Schoolhouse, about halfway between Dedham and Coon. We lived about a half a mile west of there. We'd have to walk back and forth to that schoolhouse every day when we lived out there. And you had one teacher, you had
Yeah.
a school with one room, and the one teacher taught every grade. Now some of the grades there was nobody in that grade because there's only about 8 or 10 or 12 kids went to school there. And some of the grades there just wasn't any kids in that grade. But that teacher, she taught the whole works, whatever there was. Now that school, by the way, they moved that into Dedham, Iowa, my old hometown, and it's being used as a garage or a car shed, whatever you want to call it up there. John Warner bought it that time when they closed it up and moved it into Dedham there.
Yep.
No story about that.
Speaking of school too, when I went,
One of my fellow employees, I was telling him about that one day, and told him that school was there in Dedham, and he didn't really believe me. But I said, you just go up and look at it, and you can tell all the windows that it was a school. Well, then, about 2 weeks later, there was a couple came to Dedham looking for the Evergreen Schoolhouse. And they happened to stop down at the gas station when Dan was down there and asked him if he knew where the Evergreen Schoolhouse was. He said, yeah, I do. And they said, you do? They were just puzzled that he would know. Well, I had told him about you. Well, he took him up there then. And this lady had gone to school there, and she had taken some pictures of it and everything, but they're from Glidden over here, east of Carroll, but that was just a little incident.
Hey, Mom, you got to turn it to the window. It's glaring even more.
But
There, better.
getting back to school, when I went to parochial school, like when you kids went to school, you had one teacher per class. Well, we had nuns, and sister had 2 classes. So at one time she would teach this class, and then she'd move over and teach this class. So we probably had about, I don't know, 30, between 30 and 35 kids in one room, you know, so.
Okay. Did you like school?
I didn't mind it.
Did you like school, Grandpa?
How's that?
Did you like school?
You had to do something, you may as well go to school.
Well, I mean, I like school, but I had a little problem. See, between my brother, I told you I was a twin, and between my brother and myself, we're only 10 months apart. And when I started school, they didn't have kindergarten. So my mom made me wait till I was 6 years old to go to school, or 7, I can't remember which. And my brother was of school age, so we were in the same class. Well, as we started going up in classes, the kids would say, "Oh, your brother and sister, are you twins?" And I'd say, "No." And then they would say, well, I said, "My brother and I, there's only 10 months difference between us, and my mom made me wait." But otherwise, the next question would have been, "Did you flunk?" And that kind of always made me a little bit unhappy, because I didn't flunk. My mom made me wait. So I had to live with that till I went to high school.
What kind of grades did you get?
Not like Brainy over here. Average.
Okay.
Probably B's and C's. I've
Well,
got
that's still pretty good.
got a couple D's too I had to crack down and whatnot all. Yeah. No, I wasn't Brainy like Grandpa over here.
What kind of grades
But
did you
talk
get?
about schools. By today's standards, they claim you can't teach a person anything unless you have so many students per teacher, maybe 15 or 17. But here you had 2 classes in a room. One class had half the room, the other class had the other half the room. You had one nun or teacher teaching both classes. She'd work with the one class while the other class might say had a study period and everything. And you might have, some of those classes had 35 kids between the 2 classes. Some of them rooms, I should say, had that. And you take one teacher that had 35 students that she was trying to teach. But yet, I think we learned more of the basic reading, writing, arithmetic than what they learn today.
Yeah.
Because they got to have a calculator or something to do it today. We had to stick pencil in our hand to do it.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of grades did you get?
Was that?
What kind of grades did you get in school?
Well, I got pretty good. I hit the honor roll pretty regular.
He's a smarty.
You tell, he was salutatorian of his class when he graduated from Carroll High. So you're pretty proud of your grandpa there, aren't you? Yeah.
I could have done a lot better in high school if I didn't. I lived in Dedham and I couldn't participate in a lot of stuff because if you didn't have the ride back and forth, you just didn't go.
Mm-hmm.
I rode that bus in the morning or rode it in the afternoon. If anything extra than that, you just have a way to get up there.
Yep.
I say, when I went to high school too, you know, we didn't have, kids didn't have cars and you had to ride the bus. And I didn't have the advantage of having folks to bring me to everything. And then once in a while, our neighbor man drove the Kemper bus or the Carroll High bus or whatever. And then we would pay a dime to ride the bus to go up to a Kemper activity. And that's the only way we got up there. Otherwise, it was kind of hard to do activities after school and everything. And we didn't have no relation or like a grandma and grandpa living in the same town so you could stay and do something. It was kind of hard. Couldn't do it.
Where did you go to school?
I went to 8th grade. I went to St. Joseph's School in Dedham, and then I went my freshman year to Carroll High, and then in 1954 they built Kemper, and then I went my last 3 years of high school at Kemper High School.
Well, St. Angela's.
But they had the St. Angeles, but I didn't go to St. Angeles. I went
Oh.
to Carroll High. My freshman year I went to Carroll High because my folks couldn't afford the tuition to go to a private school. And then Kemper, and then when they started Kemper, they had the junior and senior girls out of St. Angela, just had the girls class, and then my class and the freshman class, like Ruthie's class when she started off, Ruthie, they had the boys and the girls. And they were the first two boys classes that went to Kemper was in 1954.
Where did you go to school?
Where did you go to school?
I went to St. Joseph's in Dedham for grade school, except for that 1 year down at the Evergreen Country School. Then I went to Carroll High School for my high school education. And after that there, I just started working and worked the rest of my life.
What were your favorite subjects?
Recess.
You sound like kids today.
I really didn't.
My favorite subject was shorthand and typing.
That was in high school. What about in grade school?
Well, grade school, everybody had the same subjects.
Yeah.
You had English all the time, and you had history. And
Yeah, but what was
you had a lot of penmanship. They worried about
Yeah.
penmanship.
what was your favorite?
It wasn't penmanship because I was left-handed, and they
was
tried to
gonna
write
say.
with those pens that had that fancy. When you held them in your hand and wrote, it was thin and thick and
Calligraphy.
it doesn't work for a left-handed person. I couldn't tell
Calligraphy?
by none of that. But my favorite was not music.
I believe that.
But my favorite was really arithmetic. It would have been called in grade school.
Well, tell them about you being.
Now they've got geometry and trigonometry and all that, but it's just plain old arithmetic.
Yeah, but tell them about years ago with you being left-handed. The nuns tried to change you to a right hand.
They never converted me on that either.
Well, I mean, tell her about it.
I
Years
was
ago.
left-handed from the word go, and I'd be writing with my left hand, and the nun would come by in grade school, and she'd take the pencil out of the hand and put it in the other hand. She'd walk on by, and the pencil would go right back in the left hand.
They did that them years. You know,
Yeah.
they wanted you to write.
They had their
right-handed.
head that you could not be left-handed. I mean, they tried to convert them to be right-handed. And then the later years, they finally got smart and said, well, let them just, whatever they're naturally going to be, left-handed or right-handed, let them go, you know.
Did you have like many kids be left-handed back then or not?
Did you have a lot of left-handed kids in your class?
Not an awful lot, no. Nope, not really.
I liked music and I liked math.
How many years of education have you had?
12 years.
I mean, it was what?
How many years of education did you have?
12.
12 years.
We didn't have another thing, you didn't have kindergarten back then either. You started out in grade 1. No preschool, no kindergarten like you have nowadays. You had to be something like 6 years old, I think it was the 15th of September, most of the time it was. You had to be 6 years old by then in order to start school. Then you're
Ask
in the
about
first grade.
special education.
As a child, what did you want to be when you grew up?
As a child, I really didn't think about it. Probably get married and have a family. You know, get a job. When I graduated from Kemper, some kids went to college and some didn't. And some of my classmates, girl classmates, back then they got diamonds for graduation, and they were, oh, we're gonna get married, we're gonna get married. No way. I said, I'm gonna be 21 before I get married, and I lacked 3 days of it. I just made up my mind I was not gonna get married right away. You know, go out and work for a while. I didn't want to be tied down.
What did you want to be when you grew up?
I had it in my head I wanted to maybe go to college enough to become a CPA, and that'd be it.